All right, guys, besides survival, nature, and perception checks, what do you think is the most useful skill check when you're deep in the wilderness?
You know what? I'm gonna go, or maybe an unexpected one. I'm gonna say a performance check
Oh yeah.
for doing animal calls, bird song, and the
Okay.
like. I think if you score very highly on that, in real life or in the game, I feel like that is an interesting use of a performance check.
Look, we all know from sitting around the Call of Cthulhu table that being good at moose call is very important. You don't want
Right.
to flub that. Yeah, yeah. That didn't make
Wonderful.
the final cut, did it?
No, no, that did not make the final cut.
Okay. Well,
We were all laughing so hard that it redlined the whole thing, and so nobody we just couldn't add that. The audio was wild for that.
that's too bad.
Yeah, you built up that moose call so big just to have it just fart out.
Squeak. Yeah.
It was the weakest noise. Oh, so good. Dave,
But yeah, what do you think? What skill?
I mean, you can never really go wrong with stealth, right? Or
Yeah.
animal handling. I think that if you're in the middle of nowhere and you're doing like you're trekking for a long ass time, medicine's probably going to want to be one of the things that you have,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah, I mean, let me tell you, I think insight is probably the most important because you need to have some insight into, what's going on around you, what these things mean, and how they affect you. Not having that, like insight into your situation, is you're in for a bad time.
Is that how you use insight? Insight's usually for like perception is to be aware of the thing, investigation is to look a little bit deeper, but insight is for like interpreting people's
I guess
motivations and stuff.
I was thinking that if I didn't have survival, nature, and perception available, that's what I
Okay.
would be using, right?
Yeah, okay. Just to get insight on the situation like the wilderness around you. Is that what you're
Yeah, I mean, you look around and you kind of see what's going on. It can really impact, where you are. I guess I'm using it as a survival check, essentially, I guess.
Yeah, that's the poor man's survival in the wilderness.
Yeah, I guess, yeah.
Well, maybe you could use, no, even then. I was going to say maybe you could use it against wildlife to understand their intentions, but then even then that feels like animal handling probably. So,
Yeah, right. I was thinking also like history. Maybe you know like the history of the area. Like there are old, if orcs used to live in this area, right? You would be looking for footpaths through or old like you just know that there are going to be watering holes a certain distance from each other, right? Or encampments or something, depending on what's happened in this region. But I don't know. I could make a point for just about anything, I guess, on the list.
Yeah, how
Not
about
so,
deception?
yeah, I was gonna say not so much deception.
Yeah.
well, deception if you're pretending to be something else, right? Or maybe if you're playing dead or something.
Grizzly bear comes around, you got to play dead for a minute. Deception.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's not bad. Yeah.
Deception or is that performance?
Probably performance.
That's right. See, performance.
See, Terry, you were right all along.
Thank you.
Welcome to the It's a Mimic podcast, where you never know what you're going to get.
Welcome back to It's a Mimic, where you never know what you're going to get. Today, we're continuing our discussion on DM tips in Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition. I am Terry, and with me today are Adam and Dave. And this episode is called Wilderness Travel, Hiking Up the Difficulty.
In this episode of the It's a Mimic podcast, this panel of dungeon masters will be heading out beyond the comforts of civilization and exploring everything that happens between the encounters and the hazards while traveling the wilderness in Dungeons and Dragons.
Before we journey any further into this topic, I want to ask you guys, if you know that you like, here's my hypothetical question. Terry, you love these ones. If
Right.
you know that you've got to spend 10 days out in the wilderness and the only things you're allowed to take with you are appropriate clothing that you're going to be wearing, a decently sized knife, a water skin with some kind of purification or filtration or something, and then one more item of your choice, what item do you choose? Let's roll initiative. I got a 7.
Yeah.
I
I
got
got
a
a 4 when I eventually rolled it on the table.
1.
What'd you get, Dave?
4.
I mean, am I dumb for just bringing a big old spool of twine? Right? I feel like I can make snares out of that. I'll be able to do a basic amount of fishing with it.
Right.
I'll be able to get any food that I am able to, like, if I were to break off a piece of like a bush that had berries, or I've got leftover rabbit or whatever, I can hang it from a tree so other animals can get to it in the middle of the night. like twine, not necessarily
Yeah,
rope.
you can use it to put branches together to make shelter, right? Like you can.
Yeah, like a spool, just a spool of twine is going to be like 200, 300 feet of twine.
Right.
Dave, I think you were next.
I'd like to say, a fully loaded Zippo lighter just to, make it nice and easy. But there's so many ways to make fire out in the woods. Honestly, I would be thinking just shelter. Like as long as I've got shelter, I'm pretty good. The knife I can use to forage and make a fish hook, and I can use, greenery to, make my own kind of twine, right? But shelter is the most important thing. If we got food and water checked off, shelter's next. So probably a big tarp, something
Yeah.
waterproof that I can get underneath. And then you find out how the terrain works for you, and you set it up so that the water runs away. And if you're dry and covered, you're gonna do okay.
I just assumed that I would be able to build a shelter, just a lean-to with enough foliage on top that I'd be able to stay dry.
Sure, you probably can, but I think that time is better off used to go and, find food, right? Get your shelter done, easy, checked off, moving on.
That's fair. Do you want a full shelter, like a full tarp, or are you looking for like an emergency, like one of those tinfoil blankets?
Oh, no. So when I'm out doing all my backwoods stuff, I always carry it's a lightweight 8x10. It's actually called a hammock fly, but it's just a really, really lightweight tarp that doesn't have grommets. It just has like tie downs on the edges. And if we get socked into like really bad rain, we'll just pop that up and hide out underneath it. All right, it's only an 8x10. We maybe only use half of it when we do this, right? Like just something small.
When you say we, how many people can fit out of that?
Too comfortably.
Yeah, all right.
I like big tents. That's what I like. So you guys basically were on both of my answers. I was going to say rope or I was going to say like a pop-up tent. I don't like to feel homeless, Dave. Okay, so I'm not into that as much. But I think I would agree with. See, now I agree with Adam, right, with the twine. But fuck it, no.
I just feel like the twine is something I can make in the woods quite easily.
Really? Can you teach me how to do that? Because I don't know how to do that. I didn't know
just find long strands of things and braid it, right?
I've never braided a damn thing in my life. I understand the basic concepts, but I'm not sure that I've got the manual dexterity in my hands to be able to do that for an hour without just giving up and saying, fuck it.
Yeah, I mean, like there's certainly skill involved. You need to be able to actually do it. And I probably am overestimating my skill in doing it.
Well, I'm probably overestimating my skill in building a lean-to, if I can be completely honest. Like, again, I understand the concept of it, but I will either over-engineer it or under-engineer it by a goddamn sight.
Yeah, I would certainly under-engineer it for sure. I'm going to say pop-up tent because I want a bit of comfort, but I agree with the shelter thing.
It's funny that none of us went with anything like a cast iron pot or something, right? Like, for me, I know that's not necessary, but I know a lot of people would be like a mess kit would be the thing that they would look for.
Right.
Well, I can't have cast iron without oil and paper towel to properly season it afterwards. So,
all right, well, maybe not cast iron then, you prima donna, but fuck.
All right, well, not Teflon.
Okay, before we meander any more on this subject, let's check out an info break.
We've previously covered quite a bit in our discussion on Dungeon Master tips in 5th edition. For all of those episodes and more, you can follow or subscribe on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, and dozens of other podcast apps. And if you'd like to support us, you can donate through the website, check out our store, or join the Patreon and get access to other episodes and series. If you'd like to pay for some ad space on It's a Mimic, or just send a shout out to a friend, please reach out to us through our email and website that are listed in the show notes below.
Yesterday, on the public It's a Mimic channels, Mieka and Casey sat down with another episode of Touring the Multiverse where they discussed the more destructive gods in the Theros campaign setting. And then on the Patreon this upcoming Thursday, Tyler and I sit down with the campaign builder to go over how to handle otherworldly mentalities when you're dealing with role-playing, especially when you're getting into the weird stuff like beholders and dragons and satyrs. But for now, let's get back to the episode.
Okay, team, let's move into our first subject then, that we're going to discuss for travel. I want to talk about speed. We'll go through some of the rules of speed and how they can be best applied, and then some of the other activity that can occur while traveling in Dungeons & Dragons. So In Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition, movement and speed are essential aspects of the game mechanics. They help to determine how far characters and creatures can move during their turn in combat and exploration. And here's a breakdown of how it works. So speed, every creature and character in D&D has a speed attribute measured in feet per round. This attribute represents how fast they can move under normal circumstances. The most common speed for players is 30 feet per round. Smaller characters might get 25, but this can vary based on race, class features, spells, or magical effects. So for movement, during a player character's turn in combat, a character can move a distance up to their speed. And movement can occur before, during, or after taking actions such as attacking, casting spells, using items, and the player can split their movement across their turn however they wish, moving some before and even taking some movement after taking actions. And there are different types of movement. So in addition to regular movement, characters and creatures can have different modes of movement based on their abilities or their characteristics. And some of the common types include walking, that's your standard movement, your 30 feet per round for a medium-sized creature, standard movement on foot, flying, which is movement through the air, and flying speed allows characters to move vertically as well as horizontally, although certain limitations or conditions may apply, such as altitude restrictions or needing a space below them that they can hover above. Swimming, movement through water, so characters with a swimming speed can move efficiently through water without taking any penalties. Climbing, which is movement along vertical surfaces, so characters may need a climbing speed or make an ability check to climb successfully. There is a burrowing speed, which is movement underground. This is less common. It's usually specific to the creatures some creatures that you might encounter in D&D. And then one thing to consider with speeds is difficult terrain. So some types of terrain, such as dense forests, steep slopes, or deep mud, can impede your movement. And these types of environments are considered to be difficult terrain, which means that every foot of movement through it costs an extra foot. So if a character's speed is 30 feet, moving through difficult terrain would cost 2 feet for every 1 foot of movement. And then something worth mentioning real quick is just the dash action, and characters can choose to take the dash action during their turn, which allows them to move up to their speed again as an action or as part of their regular action. So this effectively doubles their movement for that turn, or it can do. And then other things to consider that are part of the conversation with movement would be jumping. So jump distance, every character has a jumping distance, which is determined by their strength score. Actually, the rules state that a character can jump a distance equal to their strength score in feet if they move at least 10 feet immediately before the jump. If a character has a strength score of 10, for example, they can jump 10 feet horizontally from a standing position. And there are two types of jumps. There's a long jump and a high jump. So a long jump is a horizontal jump made across a gap or an obstacle. To make a long jump, a character moves at least 10 feet on foot before the jump, and they can cover a distance in number of feet of up to their strength score if they have a running start. There's also a high jump. A high jump is a vertical jump made to reach a higher ledge or a platform, and to make a high jump, a character must move at least 10 feet on foot immediately before the jump. The character can then jump a number of feet into the air equal to 3 plus their strength modifier, not their score. That's if they have a running start, I believe. Without a running start, the distance they can jump is halved when it comes to the high jump. So for jumping distance modifiers, certain abilities, spells, or magic items might modify a character's jumping abilities. For example, the jump spell triples the distance a character can jump for its duration, while a potion of jumping might grant a character an extraordinary jumping ability for a limited time. There's jumping in combat to consider. So in combat, a character can use their movement to jump instead of moving normally. So this allows for dynamic combat maneuvers, such as jumping over obstacles to gain cover, or leaping onto a higher platform to gain tactical advantage. I think the jump, especially in combat, is something that's forgotten, and we would typically try and climb even and take the penalty for that, but it's not always required. Now that's if you're trying to go higher, of course. And then ability checks for jumping. In some situations, the dungeon master might call for an ability check. It's usually an athletics check to determine the success of a jump. This could be necessary if the jump is particularly difficult, if there are obstacles in the way, or if the character is attempting a particularly long or high jump. So understanding how jumping works in D&D 5th edition allows players to engage with the environment in creative ways and navigate obstacles and execute more daring feats of athleticism during their encounters. And there was one thing I wanted to mention, just going back real quick with regards to speed, was how the distance can change based on how far you're moving. I talked more about combat speed. So the pace when you're traveling. So it's pace for traveling per minute. The fast speed per minute would be 400 feet. So this is if you're zooming out a little bit, you're not going round by round. A normal speed would be 300 feet. A slow speed would be 200 feet. If you're traveling distance per hour, for distance, fast would be 4 miles per hour. Normal would be 3 miles per hour. Slow would be 2 miles per hour. And then distance traveled per day, fast, you could cover 30 miles. Normal, you could cover 24 miles. And then a slow speed would be 18 miles over the course of a day. If you're moving quickly in any of those situations, the fast speed, you take a -5 penalty to wisdom and perception checks as well. I think that's often forgotten. I actually had completely forgotten that rule until I researched it for this episode. And I think usually we think of the penalty for stealth if you're moving quickly, but you also take a -5 for your perception checks as well. If you're moving slowly, that's the time when you're able to use stealth.
It's interesting that it's -5 and not like disadvantage on the roll. -5 is actually more punishing than disadvantage.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, the average for disadvantage is roughly 4. If you look at all the different averages, and it's not perfect, there's a bell curve for like if you have disadvantage, you can never roll, or it's very, very unlikely you're going to roll a 20, right? Because you'd have to roll 2 20s, right? But it's very likely you'll end up with a 7, 8, 9, something like that, right? But like it's interesting to see how it breaks down. So the -5 is slightly more punishing. I'm always intrigued when 5th edition does the -5, because they do that with cover too, right? They had a -5 or -10 depending on your level of cover, which again, unheard of.
Yeah,
There's
the
normally-
negative modifier, that seems like a holdover from previous editions. I mean, like everything 3.5 was a negative modifier, negative modifier, negative modifier. And I love 5th edition because they don't have so many negative modifiers, right?
Yeah, and every once in a while you run
right.
into it. Yeah,
Right.
totally.
Yeah. Okay. I also wanted to cover other activities that can happen while traveling. I think traveling in Dungeons and Dragons involves more than simply just moving characters from one location to another. I think it's a great opportunity for players and the Dungeon Master to engage in more storytelling and exploration and encounters along the way. So I have just a few areas that I would like people to consider when traveling. And the first one is simple. It's exploration. So traveling allows characters to explore more of the world around them, as opposed to just being in fixed locations all the time. So the DM can describe the landscapes, the landmarks, the points of interest along the way, as characters are moving through difficult terrain, such as different types of forests or mountains, deserts, wherever you are. And this exploration can uncover hidden secrets and treasure or clues that are relevant to the adventure. And it also, when that happens with players, when they do get to uncover secrets and clues and treasures along the way, it encourages them to explore more, because you're telling them that these things are available to them by giving them just a little bit while they're traveling. Random encounters, of course, as well. So random encounters are a common feature for travel in D&D. If you play a game where you have not a whole lot of time to play, Dave, I remember you telling me that you only get to play like for an hour or two once a month or something with your party, so you tend to get straight
Oh, it's been
to
less
it.
than that lately.
Adam, has it really? Yeah. Whereas Adam, I know you play a longer game every Sunday. You guys will go for 6 or 8 hours, I think. So maybe you get to do this stuff more. And I know some of the people in that group as well, and I know that they like the random encounters. So random encounters, they're a common feature in D&D. So characters journey through the wilderness, and along the road they get to encounter various creatures, travelers, different types of challenges. And these types of encounters, they could be combat encounters with monsters, they could be social encounters. I like to have traveling merchants and all kinds of different crazy characters along the way, but there can be environmental challenges such as storms and natural hazards as well. Other activities for travel could include resource management. So traveling requires characters to manage their resources effectively. So this includes tracking provisions such as food, if you do that. Some people still do that, and water, or managing their equipment and supplies, and then even keeping an eye on the condition of their mounts or their vehicles. Mounts is a great one, and their pets, because it pulls them closer to those animals or those creatures so that you can kill them later for your own enjoyment. But it strengthens that bond, and it makes the game more real. It immerses them. So characters may need to hunt for food as well, find sources of water, or make a camp in a sensible place. You know, it's not every location is sensible for camping. Something I've started to include is navigation. So having my characters navigate the terrain and follow directions to reach their destination. And I'll get them to do that regularly throughout the travel. And I'll just ask the party who is navigating along the way, and it becomes a point of conversation for them because somebody is put in charge of navigating. So this can involve involve using maps, of course, or landmarks or guidance from NPCs to stay on course. I'll use my NPCs to give them directions using landmarks and points of interest, because then it encourages them to explore them when they get there. When they're looking for the ruined tower that's covered in the vines or whatever it may be, they'll have a look while they're there, what's in there. So, conversations, discussions are also important along the way. So role play and interaction. I watched a masterclass once with, I think it was Dan Brown. It was about thriller writing. And one thing he mentioned on there is whenever a conversation is going on, it should always happen with movement. They're moving to go somewhere at the same time. And I like this with travel in D&D as well. So if there's a role-playing opportunity, travel is great for that. And it brings a little bit more realism to the situation, because as they have that conversation, you can let them know what they're coming across at that time, and it can help steer the conversation for them. And then there's downtime activities as well. So during longer journeys, characters may have downtime between encounters or events. That kind of downtime can be used for various activities such as crafting items, studying spells, practicing their skills, or engaging in downtime activities specified by character backgrounds or class features or items. Often books will need to be read for a certain amount of time. Travel can be done for that if the character's in a situation where they're maybe traveling in a cart, or they don't have to do anything too active at the time. And so those are my thoughts on speed, reminder of the rules, and travel. Okay, so I do have some questions for you guys. Let's roll initiative first. 15.
Lucky number 13.
Natural 20.
Nice. Okay, Adam, then I will go, then Dave, you can go last.
Last with my unlucky 13. Love it.
Adam, how do you feel about the rules surrounding speed and travel pacing?
I mean, it's fine. It's an extrapolation, right? Like, it's not meant to be realistic. It's meant to be pseudo-realistic, a gamified, codified version of it, right? So it's not legitimately like this is how fast a person moves. There are other game systems where, depending on, Call of Cthulhu is a great example. Like, it gets noodly about how many yards you can move depending on your age and your encumbrance, and like we just don't deal with that shit, right? Like, it's pretty simple. If you're way down, you move at half speed. There it is. There's so many things that just knock you down to moving at half speed, right? Each foot takes an extra foot. There's another one, I think, crawling. There's something to do with that'll knock you down to like a third speed or even a quarter speed. Like, it'll stack, but it's rare. You don't run into that very often. And it makes enough sense for me to play this game, and it's absolutely fine. I love there are penalties for moving too quickly. Like, that makes a lot of sense. I almost want to give boons for moving more slowly.
Yeah, right. What did you think about the penalty to perception checks when moving quickly?
I love it. I think it's brilliant. But I feel like I almost want to give you a +2 modifier if you move at half speed, because you're looking around, right? Like, but then again, then we get into like, well, when I take watch at night, would I get a +2 or advantage or whatever? I don't want to get into that shit. I don't need to get that noodly. If I want to do that, like Dave said, we're playing 3.5, right? If we're adding too many modifiers. But I do like the idea that your stealth and your perception take a hit.
Yeah.
That should absolutely be the case. Now, how would you feel if like someone was trying to keep a watch over it? Like, I'd allow them to probably do something like a concentration check to negate it.
Yeah, I have no problem with that. Perception's usually wisdom based, but concentration feels right. I'm still annoyed that concentration's not listed on the skill list.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
I just feel like there are lots of ways to concentrate. We recently ran into it we were on a ship very briefly in our campaign, and everyone was getting buffered around a bunch. And I'm like, concentration checks to keep doing the shit that you're doing, right? Just to be able to hold on was strength checks. But there were like people were trying to accomplish things. And so concentration checks came into play. And when we were in free fall for like 700 feet or something at one point.
Yeah,
right?
People were trying to
like line up to be able to catch other people. And like, if I've seen concentration in front of me, that would have been a reminder that, oh, hey, this person trying to cast a spell will need to actually roll concentration instead of me just rapid fire trying to keep the momentum up. Like, I don't know. I think that's a brilliant idea, Dave. Concentration to keep watch, or like the scout ahead of the group, right?
Yeah. Just like you're making sure there's no bandits or like traps along the road or something like that. To not have that disadvantage or negative penalty. Do a con check or a concentration check. Right?
Yeah, I don't mind the rules for speed either. I think it's fair play. I don't think we need to get too deep into it. And, some players might argue, well, I think I could cover more distance than that. Like, if I do my own math and things. And I just think, but there's also how enthusiastically do you move? after 8 hours, you just naturally slow down. If you're walking for a long time, you might be able to start off with some long strides or something, but you just kind of settle into your regular rhythm. And I feel like it's fair. I also like the penalty for perception checks, because yes, you would be looking at what's around you and you are looking for threats, but if you're moving quickly, I think there should be a penalty to that, and that will encourage more encounters, which is all part of the game, right? I don't think we should make it too easy to avoid encounters. Otherwise, what are we doing? So yeah, Dave, your thoughts?
I will hold on, Dave, before you go, I will say this. Just before, because I know we're gonna get comments, especially on YouTube, about this. Well, mounts move faster, so what math should we be doing? And my response to this, someone else, another DM said this, and I thought it was brilliant. I've adopted this now. The reason that humans became apex predators is because we can outlast our prey.
Yeah.
We just have better endurance to keep higher speeds over long distances. Yes, a horse can outpace us, but they get tired so much faster than we do, so that the end of an 8-hour day, we're probably outpacing them still, especially if they're overloaded with weight that they're carrying as well, like a knight in full armor, right? So yeah, I do go by the average walking speed for the entire party, right? That just makes sense that this is how far you can travel. I don't need to say, well, they've got axe beaks, but this guy over here has a riding lizard, and that guy's got a I don't need to do that. And the monk is moving 90. No, I'm not doing that math for day-long travel, right?
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Dave?
I mean, I like it. It's nice and simple. My little DM screen, it's kind of got that right in one of the corners of it. So I kind of have that rough guide. Like, it's honestly one of those parts of the game that I don't often play around with. We get in, we do our thing. We don't get bogged down in the travel of it, right?
That's fair.
You guys have both done modules a bunch, or like the published adventures, and I don't.
Oh, yeah.
How often does travel time come up in the actual published adventures that you run into?
In Tyranny of Dragons, it comes up a lot because you have to cover a lot of distances. You're essentially walking up and down the Sword Coast. So
up and down, back and forth.
Yeah, it comes up a lot.
Yeah.
I honestly, when there was a part in it, I just kind of hand waved during the next part. Like when we were doing Candlekeep, there are times when you leave Candlekeep and go for a long journey, right? We just go.
Well, you have limited time to play,
right? So when there is an opportunity to slow it down, we don't necessarily. However, that being said, there have been opportunities where we've slowed it down and been able to interact with NPCs on a journey, and that's revealed a lot more about the story. You can use it to really drive the plot, understand what's going on in the world. Just kind of reset the scene. That's your opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and as we think of travel with the day-long travel, I do use it a lot. I wouldn't say I get bogged down, but I have this thing that I do where I zoom in, zoom out. So if I'm zooming out for travel, I'll kind of zoom out on the encounters as well. Like, it doesn't need to be, okay, you arrive at the ship, now what you do? Now you go downstairs. It's like, over the course of the next day, what are you trying to achieve? And then so things like trying to get like rumors and that kind of thing. Okay, it's just nice, simple check, insight check of some kind or whatever. Then I'll just give them generally what they get over the course of the day, the characters that they meet over the course of the day, and just a little description of how they seem to act, so that they have points that they can zoom in on later on if they want to, but I'm not forcing them to go around and meet every NPC that works on the ship. I'll kind of zoom out a little bit, and that's all part of long distance travel for me.
I was going to ask, when you guys do this distance travel at all, do you stick to roads? Is it the same speed through wilderness as it is through roads?
I mean, we stick to roads out of convenience because it's the fastest way to travel. And so because of that, if they're going wilderness...
The reason I asked, Terry, is because when you were playing in my campaign, we did it on rivers, right? And based on the flow of the river, you'd either move at two times the speed, you go 2 squares this way, or it would take 2 days to go 1 square this direction. We almost did like hex grid style, right?
That's right. I remember that was a nightmare when we had to plan if we had to go against the current. I don't mind that. I'm okay with that type of thing. It's pretty fun. It's just another challenge in the game, right? It's another thing to collaborate on, so I'm good with it. But some terrain is not suited for some mounts and vehicles as you head off roads and into the wilderness, touching on what Adam was saying there. So players might find themselves slowed down or even stopped. So besides just difficult terrain, What's one obstacle that you would throw at your players to force them to leave their mounts and vehicles behind? Adam, you were going first.
Rope bridge. That one seems really obvious to me. Like, how are you going to there is no bridge here. There is a log that has fallen across the crevasse. It's a huge log, but it's relatively narrow. How are you getting your oxen and cart across this, right? Yeah. And I mean, a simple enlarge reduce spell is going to fix that problem, right? Or
Dan loves fixing this kind of problem. This is a Dan problem. Yeah.
And there are like I say, there are ways around it. Cast fly on it, right? Like, and you're just laughing from there. However, I often like the physical barrier of either a sheer cliff up or a sheer cliff down, just to make it so that if you've got to climb, unless your mount is a goat, your hooves are not going to cut it.
It's a goat. Yeah, you're right. I like that kind of thing as well. I like to, whenever they're expecting something, I always like it to make it just slightly different so that they know that there is a bridge there on the map, but the bridge is collapsed, right? Or, whatever it may be, or the road is washed away. There is a road, but the road is washed away, or there's a flood, or something that stops them from going through that situation with ease, where they may be forced to redirect their mounts or think about their animals in a different way. I like the sheer cliff idea because it's nice and simple, and it doesn't need to be a big cliff. It doesn't need, they may be able to climb down inside of a couple of rounds, but it's enough that they can't get their horses down. So whatever the situation is, whatever's on the map, just not quite what they expected is what I would advise.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, one of my favorite things to do is to just break their vehicle. So a lot of my, in 3.5, we have a lot of loot, right? So it wouldn't be uncommon for them to have a wagon for all of their loot. And, it can be hard to break a wagon, but it's pretty easy to kill a horse, right? And they're not going to carry everything. Or if they are, they're going to lash up their barbarian and make him pull it. And that kind of takes him out of the next random encounter as well, because he's going to have to get out of that too, right? So, I like the idea that, or they'll have to leave it behind and go and get another horse and come back to get their stuff. Like, it's, I don't know, just break the vehial,
One of my favorite random encounters that I ever played in as a player, this was, God, Dave, way back in this is 20 years ago. Do you remember Brad, not the Brad on the podcast, other Brad? He gave us an encounter where we had a wagon and the wheel broke, and one person had to sit there and mend the wheel, and the rest of us had to defend it as orcs descended upon us. They'd set up a trap to break the wheel and stall us, and we just had to battle as wave after wave of orcs came by. Now, we were pretty high powered. It was pretty fun to just slaughter orcs for an hour and a half, but it was really memorable to me.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I love that kind of thing. That's a good encounter. What's one other activity that you can think of that adventurers might do while they're traveling?
I don't know. There's lots of, I'm thinking about in reality, traveling does not count as rest, right? When you're playing Dungeons and Dragons. And as someone who just got off a series of planes, I can guarantee you I need a day to recover after my travel day.
Yeah,
right.
Me too.
And I did a 6-hour overnight layover from 12:45 to 7:00 a.m. in LAX. And they don't have vending machines in LAX. So I was reliant for those 6 hours on water fountains, which we're in a post-COVID world. I wasn't going to touch that shit. But there was not even anywhere for me to get a bottle of water. So I sat there. Sorry, a bottle of water. There we go, Terry.
Oh, sorry. I didn't know what you said for a second there.
So, man, I'm telling you, there is no rest to be had. But that doesn't mean that there's not going to be things that people do to pass the time. Whereas during a short rest, a wizard can be reading a book, or a bard can be practicing a tune, or a cleric can be praying. If you're all walking, you're probably not doing that. But if you're riding in a cart, you might be able to do some of that shit, right? As long as your dungeon master, I'm not going to let you get restful sleep in. Not really. Or if I am, it's going to be at half of the efficiency of normal rest. But I really do feel like there are things that the subclasses and the classes kind of point at, but hey, you know what? The alchemist artificer is sitting in the back of the covered wagon right? And very slowly working on crafting the next potion. We're traveling for 8 hours. He's not involved in what's happening outside. He's very much focused on this. I'll make him roll a check with disadvantage because it's jostling around. Yes, let's do this, right? And so a lot of the class stuff makes a lot of sense for me, right?
Right. Yeah, I love it. Along the same lines, I like to give people jobs, actually, or let them give themselves jobs. So I talked before about navigating, who's navigating, and I'll ask who's scouting ahead if you are, and just kind of prompt them a little bit where they can decide whether or not they want to have a scout. But when I say who's scouting ahead, it suggests to them that it would be to their advantage to do that. And that if they deliberately don't, that's clearly going to be an error for them. I might also ask who's resource gathering along the way, who's tracking animals along the way, because I think what happens is we tend to get to the destination, then we go, now we'll go and gather resources and now we'll do whatever. But I like the idea of somebody doing their survival check or perception check or whatever it is to see what resources are along the way, what berries are there, where animal tracks or anything, because then there you can use that stuff to steer the narrative a bit where you're helping them understand that this could be a good place to camp for the night, and then they get to make the decision, instead of just saying you guys should stop, you've been traveling all day. So I like to give people jobs along the way.
It's funny you say that about the foraging and stuff on the way. I was very much a DM that said, when you get to your campsite, now the ranger goes off hunting, let's roll the survival check. I was very much that way until Dave started hunting in real life, and specifically grouse, because, well, Dave, you can tell the story better than me. You don't
actually, this was my answer to the question.
Okay, yeah.
Right? Hunting, that's what I do when I'm out traveling around. Like, we're on back roads where I'm literally traveling the cart path of gravel, the muddy roads. It's literally what I'm doing, and I use that time to do gear maintenance and hunt. So we'll see a grouse on the side of the road and we'll just get out and shoot one. And normally if there's one, there's probably a little covey of them. So you can get 3 or 4 at a time if you're quick, right? But and that's perfect. It takes 2 minutes, you stop and you move on, right?
Sorry, Dave. Grouse, for people that don't know about British Columbia ground fowl. These are
upland game bird. Think of it as like a small chicken, like a half size of a chicken. I call them ditch chickens actually because they just hang out on the side of the road. But yeah, they're
not very big. Are they in the same family as like a pheasant?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
They're a gallinaceous bird, which means they don't have they got like scaly feet, like a chicken.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's gala.
Thank you, Dave. Thanks for the Jurassic Park reference.
Yeah.
I understood that reference. Who's next? Dave. I'm handing it over to you.
All right. So yeah, I did a little bit of looking into rests here, the different kinds of rests. Of course, we know there's the 2 kinds, short and long rest. Adventures need downtime, right? You have to do things like fix your equipment. You have to sharpen your weapons. You have to eat. You have to go to the bathroom. You got to do stuff, right? So you got to have your rests. Your short rest is kind of meant for, the middle of the day. You stop, have your siesta, kind of thing. And then your long rest is your end of the day, sit down, unwind, set up camp, right? You're going to establish yourself probably when you do a long rest. A short rest, you're going to take your pack off and grab something out. You're not going to, lay out your site, right? For a short rest, it's got to be at least 1 hour. It can be longer if you want, but it does have to be at least an hour. And you can't do anything more strenuous than like eating, reading, praying, patching wounds, because that's kind of the point of a short rest, is to patch your wounds, right? That's, I would say, 90% of the time. The reason my players will take a short rest is to use their hit dice, right? Now, during the rest, you can use one of your hit dice specifically at the end, right? Because often I find my players like, oh, we're in a short rest, I'm going to heal immediately. It's like, well, hold on. We're not quite there, right? Maybe we'll have an encounter along the way, something like that. So it's got to be at the end. And the hit die is obviously based on the class that you've chosen. If you cross class, you may have a couple of different kinds of hit dice, right?
I always love it when you say cross class because your 3.5 is showing.
Yeah, multi-class.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, prestige class.
No, not anymore.
But yeah, so yeah, you use the hit die, you roll the die. So if you have a D8, you roll the D8, add your Constitution modifier to it, and then add that to your hit point total. And then you can decide on whether or not you want to roll another die to keep building up your health, right? You can use as many as you want, as many as you have available, I should say. And you regain your hit dice after a long rest. You don't get them back after a short, just a long rest, right?
You gain them all back?
No, you only gain half of your level. So like if you're level 8, you would get back 4 of them.
That's punishing.
I have never played that way, and I actually learned that while I was researching this. Season.
We play that way on Sundays. You just never take enough damage to have it matter.
No, I try to hide in the back, right?
Yeah, well, you're a rogue that can fly. Your job is not to mix it up. So
before I was a barbarian, I was taking reduced damage anyways, right?
Yeah.
So as for a long rest, though, you need a bit of more downtime for this. This is the extended downtime. You need at least 8 hours. You can do a couple more things, though. It's not just limited to eating and praying. You can
eat, pray, and love.
I mean, I'd let you love during this. I wouldn't say a short rest is for loving, but a long rest, absolutely. Right? It's more satisfying during a long rest, anyways. Short rest loving is just not quite the same.
Dave, you'll wake up exhausted if you do that with me.
The only person take a long rest and wake up with a level of exhaustion. Yeah. During this time, you can attune to weapons or magical items, right? You can have a chat. You can kind of get to know your NPCs a little bit. This is one of the things I like about what we do on our Sundays for the long rest is that's kind of our time to sit down and engage a little bit, dig a little bit deeper. But the interesting part I found about this was that you can stand and watch during your long rest for a maximum of 2 hours, which means you need 4 rotations, which means the who's taking watch, well, it's not me and me, it's probably just one person, because your party of 4 or party of 5, you're just one at a time. You're probably not going to double up, right? Or else you're not going to get that benefit, because you got to be 8 hours, 2 hours watch each, which is weird because that's never how I've played it either. I've always just kind of split it up equally amongst however many people we have, right?
I always do a 3-hour rotation 3 times just to kind of fill in the blanks in case we get interrupted by a whatever.
Yeah, it makes the math work a little bit easier. It gives you some flexibility.
Yeah.
It does say that if the rest is interrupted, you have to restart to gain the benefits. You can't, get half of the benefits for a half a rest. It's all or nothing. There's none of this. Well, we rested for 30 minutes. Can I regain 2 of my, or rested for 4 hours? Can I regain 2 of my hit dice? And no, that's not how that works.
So I'm sorry, if you rest for 7 hours and 59 minutes and then you get ambushed by orcs, you got to do another 8 hours.
Yep.
Fuck off. I don't play that way. That's where that extra hour gives a little bit of grace. That's fucking punishing.
Yeah, that feels
but that's the rules is written. I mean, have some flexibility with this. I don't think anybody plays a lot of the rules we're discussing tonight to the letter of the law in the book, right?
God, could you imagine? So many creatures hunt at night. You are never going to get in a long rest.
That's right.
Yep.
This actually makes towns far more important.
Well, of course, because you got that safe space, right? You're not going to have that risk of random encounter. If you're on your 4th level of exhaustion and you need this long rest, you want to be somewhere safe, right?
Yeah. I mean, now suddenly the roadside tavern as a D&D staple makes even more sense.
Yeah.
Yep, absolutely. Now, a lot of the more clever players are going to sit there and think, oh, well, if I just need to regain all of my hit dice, I'll just rest for 16 hours. That's not how that works. You can only gain the benefits of a long rest once per 24 hours, okay? In addition to that, to gain the benefits of the rest, a player has to have at least 1 hit point. So you can't be unconscious, finish the battle and go, oh yeah, we're just going to rest, and then he'll pop up at the end. It's fine. That's not how that works. You need to have 1 hit point.
I'm taking notes because how many times have we dragged an unconscious NPC into a tent, said, they'll be fine. We've stabilized them. They will be fine in 8 hours.
Like, I was kind of doing my research going, oh, this is going to suck later. I probably shouldn't talk about this. Oh, I probably shouldn't bring this up. This is going to bite me in the ass.
But hold on. Let me just say, though, again, that 9-hour chunk. So you get in a short rest. You expend a hit die. Now you have a hit point. There's nothing saying you can't do that in a short rest if you're unconscious, right?
Yeah, of course. That's true. You can make it work. And I mean, honestly, don't be a dick to your players. If it just works better to hand wave it this time, just let it happen. It's fine, right?
I'm sorry.
You want to have fun.
Hold on, I'm taking notes. Don't be a dick to my...
no, unless you're talking to Dan.
He's not my
Then it's
player, he's my
opposite.
nemesis.
That's true. He's the anti-DM.
He's an MD?
But
No.
no. I thought of that too, but I don't want to know. It's
All
doing
right.
way too much. Anyway, in addition to that, there are rest variants. Now these come up in the DMG, and I have never used any of them, although I've looked at them before and went, oh, that's neat. I'm never going to use that. The first one is Epic Heroism. This one, essentially, your short rests are going to be 5 minutes. Your long rests are going to be an hour. It recommends that you increase the difficulty of your encounters during this because you're going to be able to get through so much more, right? Now, the other thing it recommends is that you only allow casters to regain half of their spell slots after a long rest as well, okay? So this kind of slows that down instead of just having that constant stream of, whoever can regain their spell slots on a short rest, right?
Mm-hmm.
Instead of that constant stream, you kind of level that out a bit. And it actually takes it a step further because the spells that you can regain only go up to level 5. Okay. If you want to regain spell slots of 6th level or higher, you do still need that 8-hour rest. All right.
Wow.
So that's pretty powerful. That really, like, it speeds the game up. That's when you're blitzing through somewhere really quickly, but you know that you can't just keep dropping a wish spell, dropping a wish spell, dropping a wish spell. That's not how that works, right?
Yeah.
In addition to Epic Heroism, we've got another one called Gritty Realism. Now, this one, a short rest is 8 hours and a long rest is 7 days. This is for when you want to slow your game down to a grinding halt. This requires some careful planning, but it kind of tailors more to games that rely more on like espionage and political intrigue. This is where you can kind of get that done. This, honestly, as soon as I read it, I started thinking about Call of Cthulhu because it even brings up that combat should be rare. You want to avoid combat. If you get hit, it's going to suck. It's going to sideline you for a little bit, There are consequences to your actions. You're not going to wake up tomorrow feeling great,
Yeah, I always thought that gritty realism sounded really fun for a survival horror game, but there's so much combat in those that it would fuck you up. Gritty realism is meant more for Game of Thrones than Walking Dead, right? Because those characters suffered for days after they got injured.
I'd say why I like gritty realism actually is because it encourages more immersion into the towns and the townsfolk and the NPCs, because you can zoom out a bit. You can say, okay, you're going to be resting over the next few days as your wounds heal and your broken bones or whatever. Over the course of the next week, what would you like to do as you're resting? Zoom out again, and then I'll have a bunch of stuff. And then you can start to say, yes, you're going to see this person at this store and your old friend over here. Recently, this has happened in town and you notice this and you can start to create more immersion. It doesn't just have to be, oh, well, everything goes on pause for 7 days. They can do other things in that time. They're just going to stay within town.
We actually covered the rules for relaxation and recuperation in episode 265, I want to say, give or take an episode. But we covered this, and I remember thinking at the time, who gives a fuck? It's a long rest, right? Like, you're done. Unless you've got 6 levels of exhaustion, or 5 levels, so you need to take 5 days, right? Who gives a shit? But now with this, it makes a lot more sense.
Oh yeah, it would take you a month and a half to regain from the brink of exhaustion, right?
Yeah. I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's interesting. I'd probably never use it. It just doesn't fit the fast-paced style. When you're regaining all of your life essentially at the end of a long rest, this doesn't fit the game.
Yeah, you're really giving up the fucking MCU vibe of D&D then.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Now, in addition to sleep, characters also need food and water, right? You can become exhausted from not eating. This is something that you can't cure. You need food and water, okay? There is not anything else that will fix this for you. You just need to eat and drink, all right? For the food, your character needs to consume 1 pound of food per day. If they want to go on a half ration, eat a half pound of food a day. This counts as a half of a day going without food, okay? A character can go for 3 plus their constitution modifier days without food. For every day over, they gain 1 level of exhaustion, okay? A normal day of eating resets this. So if your character, for instance, has a con modifier of 4, you can go 7 days without eating. If you're doing half rations, you can go 2 weeks, okay? But after those 2 weeks, you're gonna be taking 1 level of exhaustion every single day. But eating 1 full meal, like 1 full pound, will reset that ticking clock. So if you get to day number 13 and then day number 14, you eat 1 pound, you reset it, you can go back to half rations. So you can kind of milk the system a little bit there, make it work for you.
That seems insane.
Yeah, I have never tracked food. Just like, guys, do you have food? Yes, great. Moving on. You're not going through a desert. I assume that you're going to go forage for berries on your rests. It's not something we need to normally focus too much on. For water, they say you have to have 1 gallon per day or 2 gallons if it's hot. Now, that seems like a lot to me, right? Isn't it like 8 cups a day? That's like 2 liters. It's like a half a gallon.
You're traveling all day, I suppose.
Yeah, I guess you're exerting
That would
yourself.
make sense. But 2 gallons is a
No,
lot.
this isn't if you're traveling. This is just like what your characters need. If you don't have this, you could be sitting at home. If you don't have this,
Well, that is a lot. And to be honest, actually, this real quick on this whole thing with the amount of water that you should drink is blown way out of proportion. You don't need actually anywhere near as much water as for some reason the world is convinced as we do. All you need to do is drink till your thirst is gone plus 10%. That's it. You don't need all of this fucking 4 liters of water a day. It's not right.
Yeah, I wonder if this was just we can't use the metric system, so we'll just stick with gallons.
Yeah.
I wonder if this is just an easy way to hand wave it,
How much? Hold on. While you continue, Dave, I'm going to look up how much a water skin can hold. I wonder if that's related.
Well, I mean, normally if my guys had 1 water skin a day, that was kind of what I was going on as good enough, right? You have a water skin, great. We stop, you got somewhere to fill them, great, move on.
Water skin might be about half a gallon. What's that, like 2 liters?
It holds up to 4 pints of liquid, which is equal to a half gallon.
4 pints is a half gallon.
Yeah, but how many drams is that?
Shut up, Dave.
4 pints is a half gallon. So if you go on an absolute tear of a night out, you'll drink a gallon of beer. The fuck?
Yeah.
That feels like a lot.
That's why you pee a lot when you're drunk.
I do. I'm the fucking worst for that, let me tell you.
Oh man, once you break the seal, you're done.
Oh yeah,
Dude,
there's no coming back from that.
I'm so bad, it's embarrassing.
With drinking water though, if you only have a half ration, this will trigger a DC 15 con save. If you fail, you get a level of exhaustion. Okay, so this is even if you're doing a half ration of water. Okay, if your access to water is less than that, then the character automatically takes 1 level of exhaustion. If there's no water, you gain a level of exhaustion. Right. If you already have 1 level of exhaustion, you take 2 instead. So if you're exhausted and you don't have any water today, you're now on your 3rd level of exhaustion. And I understand that to mean that if the next day you still don't have water, that sucks. Which seems weird to me because you can go longer without food. You can go longer without food than you can without water, realistically, in this, right? Because this isn't based on, I guess it's based on a con save, but like there's no ability to try to get past this. Whereas, the food, your constitution helps you get a little bit further, right? This is punishing. Whereas, I mean, can't you go like an extended period of time? Like is that on par? Like how long can you go without water?
According to Google, about 3 days. A person can survive without water for about 3 days.
Okay, so that's actually a little forgiving then.
Yeah. Hold on. Without food is up to 3 weeks.
That last day without water is going to suck as well. That's not you walking around perfectly fine and then you just suddenly drop dead.
You're on
clinging to life for that last 24 hours.
Like you're dragging ass. I forget what the levels work out to be, but you're not doing much of anything at that point, right?
No, after 3 days, it's 5 levels of exhaustion, which means you're essentially fucking comatose. Like you're not doing much.
You're not going to help yourself. You need someone to intervene.
Yeah, you have no speed. You can't take reactions. Like there's a lot to it, right? You can go 11 days without sleep, which is wild.
Oh, no, thank you.
I've done 4. That was fucking torture. I will never do that again.
The idea of sleep, I think, is weird anyway. What, like, with cities everywhere, but so we're in Vancouver, right? I think it's like, what is it, like 4 million people with Metro Vancouver and stuff. So what, for 8 hours a night, all these millions of people just shut it down? All of us are just unconscious at the same time, basically? How fucked up is that?
Not all of us. Chances are good that either Dave or I are prowling around in a vehicle just driving in circles.
Well, maybe
4 in the morning. But like, yeah, you're right. It's weird that everyone's just like an agreed time that we'll all just stop.
Yeah, exactly. And be completely unguarded as well.
Right. Well, I mean, speaking of sleep, they do give us rules for sleep in Xanathars, right? When your players or your characters are asleep, I mean, your players too, I guess, they are subjected to the unconscious condition, right? And there are a whole bunch of ways you can wake them naturally. Now, if they're suffering from magical sleep, these may not all work. But if they take any damage, you shake them or slap them, you make some loud noises, you'll wake them up, right? Whispering won't disturb sleep, with the exception of if the character has a passive perception of over 20, whispering within 10 feet of them will wake them up, which I absolutely love that because how many times have you had that cocky, well, my passive perception's 22. It's like, oh yeah, good luck getting some sleep in, buddy. Right?
I would have used this against Loki all of the fucking time.
Oh, that's such a good idea too. I was thinking, oh yeah, that would be a great advantage to them. They can hear things coming, but no, they're just constantly being woken up.
And
I love that.
it's not going to wreck their long rest, but it will wreck their sleep.
Yep.
Yeah.
Now, in addition to all of that, sleeping in armor, there are penalties to that. Now, light armor, you're set, you're golden, no penalties. But medium and heavy armor, you only regain a quarter of your hit dice. So before you would regain half of them on a long rest, now you're only regaining a quarter, which is punishing. That sucks, right? Like I've always regained all of them to have that and then have it again. I mean, you're going to get one back. That's not a lot to work with when you're a barbarian and you're relying on your hit dice because, I mean, you're low level. You're probably not going to be carrying around a bunch of potions or have access to a lot of spells.
Yeah, but to be fair, if you're a barbarian, you're probably not wearing medium or heavy armor.
That's true.
But still, the point is the same for paladin, right? Like, or fighter, any of these D10 hit dice, right?
Mhm.
A level 4 fighter is going to be more fucked up than a level 4 barbarian, just because they don't mitigate that half damage, right? So
Yeah, that's true. The other thing about sleeping in your medium and heavy armor is if you do have levels of exhaustion, this does not negate them. All right. So the long rest does not cure exhaustion if you sleep in your heavy and medium armor. Okay. That is very important. Now, if your players think they can go without long rests and without sleep, they are wrong. For every 24 hours without sleep, the character has to succeed on a DC 10 con save, or they suffer one level of exhaustion. Now, this DC increases by 5 for every day that they're awake. So, day 2, DC 15. Day 3, DC 20, right? That gets out of control fast. Right?
yeah, that's rough. Is there any comment about how long they have to sleep?
No, because I mean, like some races don't really sleep, right? Like a Warforged doesn't really sleep. Elves
yeah.
sleeps kind of weird for them, right? So, but like I feel like it's implied if you're taking a long rest, you're getting that sleep function in, right? Like even Warforged, we actually recorded the episode not that long ago. I remember that during a long rest, they still have to spend time being inert.
Yeah.
They're alert. They can still be sentries. They can still be aware of what's going on, but they can't be doing anything, right?
Yeah.
They still need that sleep function, right?
Well, which brings us to the idea of like, what else can you do in your downtime? And there are a bunch of things that we've covered. We've covered all this in previous episodes. And I'm just going to run through the list again, because when we're talking about wilderness, we're talking about rests. And we said, it's likely your long rest is going to get interrupted in the middle of the night, right? And that's going to be a absolute pain in the ass. What else can you do on the road? So I've got the list of all of the suggested downtime activities that we've covered in previous episodes. And I just want to throw them out as we go rapid fire through the list. Are these things that you guys would allow to happen when they are out in the bush? Not even on roads. They have gone cross country they're heading through the marshes to get to Mordor. What are you going to allow them to do? And what are you going to say, no, you don't have the resources, or this is not something that is going to be available to you while you're traveling out in the wilderness, right? So let me know, would you say yes, no, or in a long rest, sure, but only sometimes, or maybe, or would this count for a short rest? Things like, would you let them craft items?
In a long rest? No.
Out in the middle of nowhere?
No.
I mean, it depends on the item and how much gear they want to bring with them. You're an artificer bringing a wagon full of tools? Sure.
Yeah, the point is that they're probably not bringing a wagon full of tools through the Rocky Mountains without a road, right? Like,
yeah.
So, what about attuning to magic items?
I think that's fine. It doesn't say anywhere that requires effort, You
No.
talk about you're in a rest period, right? In the wilderness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would put that on par with reading a book or praying to their god or something like that. You can do
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
What about identifying items when they use it as a ritual, that 10-minute ritual? Does that count in a short rest, or are they casting spells?
I'd let them do it with, like, this is going to sound kind of weird, but mundane magical items. But, you get them some more fancy, like, artifact level stuff. No,
Yeah, I agree.
What about their like class and subclass related activities, like wizards reading books, or clerics praying, or monks meditating, fighters training, all that kind of shit? Will you let them do that out in the wilderness?
Absolutely. If you take that away from them, that's what makes them their class, right? You have to.
Yeah, most of the time they're going to be out on their adventure, so that's really the only time they get to do that stuff.
Now, we already talked about relaxation and recuperation a little bit. I feel like that's absolutely fine. During your long rests, or while you're on your travels, if you're stopping, you can get this level of regaining hit dice, getting rid of exhaustion, shrugging off the poison, all that regular crap that you get from your long rest, right? Training. Do we allow people to train? There's some rules about how to gain levels by training, or how to learn skills or gain feats and stuff. Would you let them do it when they're out in the middle of nowhere?
Yeah, if they can justify how they're doing it, if they can explain it to me, then that's fine. If I don't understand how they could make it happen, I would just say I don't understand how you can do it, but if you can explain to me what you're doing, then it's fine.
I agree with that 100%. I feel like that's probably the same thing, my same mentality for performing sacred rites or religious services as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like, if you can justify it out here in the wilderness, go nuts. Like, if the rest of the party's going to sit there and listen to the cleric wax poetic about whatever their god is for 2 hours or 4 hours or however long it takes, yeah, you can get a religious service in. What about doing research?
Yeah, I mean, research to me, it's reading books, studying, that kind of thing. Yeah.
That's fine.
Would you let them do it while they're traveling, or only on rests?
I mean, if you're sitting in a cart, yeah, you can read a book.
Yeah, agreed.
If you're on horseback, probably not. Yeah.
The next two are working or running a business. And at first I thought, of course, this is not going to be a thing that they do, unless, of course, their business is collecting pelts or being a bodyguard, right? Yeah. For one of the other characters.
Yeah, or a taxi.
or being a guide, the ranger being a guide. Like, but again, it's got to be justified. You got to make it make sense.
Yep.
What about carousing? Just literally just partying with others.
Yeah, sure. Let them do it.
Gambling?
Yeah, make sense.
Kind of encourages a bit more collaboration and connection, so that's fine.
Gambling?
Yeah, always.
Absolutely. You can gamble on anything.
Yeah.
Pit fighting.
Sure.
All right, guys, we've walked far enough today. Let's fight club.
But don't tell anyone.
The next one, Terry, you mentioned earlier, which is just great for travel time, is sowing rumors and interacting with NPCs. But the last one that we covered was just generally doing crime.
Generally doing crime. I like to
general
do
crime. What would you guys like to do? General crime.
It's like mostly pickpocketing and stuff like that. This is one that I'm going to discourage because they're only going to have each other to do it to. Right. So like don't prey on the lawful good paladin, right?
Yeah, I do like to encourage crime in D&D though. I like to do a little bit of crime every day myself, actually.
Okay, all right, so like
hold on, no, we need to unpack that. Terry, what?
Not like serious things, just little. I just like to get away with stuff. I'm not good with signs. If you tell me I'm not allowed to go in somewhere, I'm like, feel like I want to go in there.
Employees only my ass.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'm bad for that. Yeah, little things like that. Little trespassing is fine. Dave, you strike me as a trespasser. I feel like you've been places you shouldn't have been before.
Absolutely, 100%. I was actually going to say, when we're out in the woods and we've got some downtime, we often do crime. Like, that's one of our favorite paths. We do things we're not supposed to do, right? It might be petty crime, like cutting down that tree over there, or just general tomfoolery. But crime is generally afoot. I am not above stealing things from my friends when we're out in the woods, have them go crazy looking for it, and then replacing it in their stuff 2 days later. I just like to fuck with them. Fuck you, Anthony. Right? Like, a little petty crime goes a long way. I'd allow it.
Okay, okay. I was with you for most of it. I know we got to get on with the episode here, but I'm going to say this. Do you know what? One thing I really don't like is practical jokes. And I try not to be like a misery with it. I fucking hate practical jokes. They're just always inconvenient. I feel like it's just like I'm always busy. Like, I didn't need you to do this to me right now. Like, this is not for me. And I have no interest in doing them to other people.
I love practical jokes that everyone can laugh at.
Yeah,
And
that's
the person that's the joke has to laugh too, right?
Yeah. So a victimless crime, as they say. So I have spent years honing that and honestly failing at it most of the time when it comes to Dan. So he has been my guinea pig on many practical jokes. But anyway.
Okay, so we have some questions. All right, let's roll initiative first again here. We can mix this order up. I got a 2.
5. Oh, roll off, Dave.
Floor.
11. I'm going
6.
first again. All right.
All right, first one, kind of obvious. How strict are the both of you when it comes to rests and gaining their benefit?
I'm pretty strict. Although I will say that I adapt it. I like to throw bigger, badder, more fun enemies. It's well and good to have 2 orcs, but why use 2 when I can use 3, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or hey, look, it's a wolf. It's more fantasy if it's a dire wolf, and it's even more fantasy if it's a winter wolf. So like I always want to use bigger things, so I hit my players harder with encounters. So I let them reroll 1s and 2s on their hit dice, and I let them recover not half of their level, but half of the hit points or the hit dice expended, right? So if they have used 7, then they can get 3.5 back, right? So, which I think essentially rounds out to be the same. So, but yeah, I'm pretty strict with it. Other than that,
Dave?
Yeah, I mean, when I'm playing, I'm paying attention to it, but when I'm DMing, no, let's just get the rest in. I mean, we did a lot of Mad Mage, so it was a lot of dungeon crawl. Time kind of lost meaning down there for a while. And so let's just get your rest and let's get your stuff back. Let's go on and beat the next thing. Let's have the next encounter. Let's get to the next exploration thing, right? Like, let's move on, right? There's so much to do. Let's go.
Yeah, that's right. I do the same. I'm kind of a hypocrite with the rules on this sometimes. I'm ambiguous with it. It's just whatever seems the most fun for the situation. I'll just lean into that.
Yeah. And like I say, I give them like 9-hour long rests, not 8 hours, just because it feels better for some reason. You have the first watch, second watch, or third watch, which feels good instead of 4. Like I don't have to roll perception, or they don't have to roll perception 4 times throughout the night. They only roll it 3 times. It speeds things up. It lets us interrupt a rest, and that can be okay because you're still like you fought for less than a minute because that's how D&D works, but you're going to take another 59 minutes to calm down again. Everybody goes back to bed, and then you can resume your rest, and that makes more
And then
sense.
you're going to walk 30 feet and get into another one, and then rest for an hour, and then walk 30 feet. And
yeah.
How do you guys feel about the rest variants?
I like them situationally. What was the heroic one, Dave?
Epic heroism. 5 minutes for a short rest, 1 hour for a long rest.
Perfect for epic one-shots.
Absolutely.
That's what it's there for. Gritty realism, I would really need to sit down and think about that one. I love it on paper. I hate it in practice.
Yeah, you got to have the right part.
I wish I'd done it for Tyranny of Dragons.
Yeah.
You spend it takes place over a long time. Like it'll take you a month to walk from Baldur's Gate to Waterdeep. So you can that's part of the game anyway. So you can kind of play it in that fashion.
What about doing something along the lines of, and just bear with me on this, guys, when you're out in the world doing your stuff, it's rest as normal. When you're travel mode, it's gritty realism. When you're actively in a dungeon, it's epic heroism.
Yeah, kind of zoom in, zoom out, kind of.
Yeah. I'd be curious to play with that.
Yeah, I like using the gritty realism as a tool to kind of set the tone. We play a pretty loose game to begin with. If I'm going to sit down and try to play a more realistic game, something with more political intrigue, something where we're going to focus on a different pillar, not just combat, I'll lay this out ahead of time and make them realize that, combat should be rare. Terry, when we were playing Call of Cthulhu and we got into that very first encounter with the guy outside of the train station, and I think it was you that got you almost died, and it was like, oh right, we gotta really rethink what we're doing here. We can't just go in and kill everything. Oh, okay, this is weird.
Let me tell you this. I am shit at Call of Cthulhu. I'll tell you that much. My character put a gun point blank to somebody's head and missed, and then died. I'm terrible at that game.
It was pretty funny there because we were playing Horror on the Orient Express. It was almost like Dave's characters were doomed the moment he rolled them.
Oh, yeah.
They just did not last.
I had Samson Swanson, though. He was great. The mustachioed maestro. Sorry.
Do you guys enforce the rules about sleeping in armor?
Not as much as I should. If I can be honest, it's only ever come up a handful of times. But Terry, I remember your character Titus was cursed to not being able to ever remove his armor in its entirety. And so the only way that we could, and I just said, you do not get the benefits of a long rest hard stop if you are wearing 90% or more of your armor. So what are you taking off? Right. And so you always left on like a greave, right? Or a gauntlet or something, right?
Yeah, the shin. I think it was I used to swap shins or something.
Yeah. And then, but if I can be honest, I think that's one of the things we're missing on a character sheet is what is your AC without armor on?
Yeah.
So that when you get woken up in the middle of the night, you can just look down and say, this is my AC. Right, instead of having to reverse engineer that math every time that you take a long rest.
Yeah, what's your touch AC?
Yeah, kind of, right? Like,
that's right.
Yeah, 3.5 for the they had touch AC and flat-footed, or flat-footed was everything you had except your dexterity modifier, and touch was everything. Sorry, was just your dexterity modifier.
Yeah, so when you didn't have an armor, shield, or anything.
Yeah.
I stick to it pretty tight. You're just not sleeping in your armor. And if you are sleeping in your armor, every single enemy and creature out there is sleeping in their armor as well. So there's no more assassinations in their bed because for some reason that person is in full plate armor with a helmet on because you are every night apparently. So that's the way I play.
I mean, frankly, that's a good point. That should be added to monster stat blocks too. Like, and it does say like AC 16 breastplate or shield, right? It does give you that info, but I very rarely reverse engineer that if my players catch those monsters off guard. If I had that number directly in front of me, I would remember to use it, but I often don't, and it's just still a 16, right?
I mean, I think the default's just a 10, right? But if they're asleep, they've got, advantage to hit them anyways.
It's 10 plus dex.
Yeah, but they wouldn't get that if they're asleep, right?
No.
Anyway, we're splitting hairs now.
And you'd have advantage because they'd be unconscious.
Yeah.
And a hit counts as a critical.
Yep.
So
how often do you address food and water rules or sleep rules?
I mean, Dave said, we never use it. I've never seen it. We don't do it. But we absolutely fucking did it because you guys spent the best part of a year crawling through a desert in tier 1.
That's fair. I mean, like when I say I never use, I mean from a DM perspective, from a player perspective. I mean, I ate so much troll jerky, I started becoming one.
Yeah, I really liked playing with those because it became a little bit of a resource management. It was very much the focus of conversations, but we never really had to dig into the mechanics. People would go hungry, NPCs traveling with you would start to complain, and then you guys would spend time foraging, finding food, rationing appropriately, and it made it so that there was tension, but it was never going to kill anybody, right? So and as far as sleep goes, I never play with it, and I should really play with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it's implied when you take your long rest.
Yeah, but I mean, the hag curses you to not be able to sleep, puts a pretty fucking nasty counter on you to get that curse removed.
Yeah, that's right. I only ever lean into these things when it's appropriate for the situation. I just expect that they have enough water on them, they have enough food on them, unless they're in a situation like a desert where I can then say it's no longer reasonable to assume that you have enough water on you. So this is now the situation.
Well, I got to the point where my party got deputized, right? And so they would go out ranging out of the city to do little missions here and there. And every time that they left, they were given 1 health potion or potion of healing per person and 10 days of rations per person and full water skins, I think 3 water skins per person. So like I geared them up so that they would never have to worry about this shit unless they were gone for over 10 days, which was not going to happen. Right. So that was overkill just so that we didn't have to worry about the math.
Yeah. Are you interested in playing with food and water rules as a player? I'll tie these questions in.
Yeah. I'd be interested. I like resource management games. I'm all about that shit. I think it'd be fun. I would love to find a good tabletop role-playing game. If anybody knows one, hit me up in the comments because I'm dying to find one. A resource management zombie or post-apocalyptic survivalist game that's a TTRPG, not just a board game where you're counting bullets and you roll a d6 to see how many survivors. Like, it's not that shit. It's Like I'm all about that. I would love to find a good way to play that. I think that'd be fun.
Yeah, I don't mind it as a player. I guess I never really answered as a DM properly. As a DM, go after their NPCs. Go after the NPCs and the mounts. The mounts also need water. The pets also need water. When was the last time your dog ate something? That puts a little bit of pressure on the players. That's how we go after them. When was the last time my dog ate something, actually? But as a player, yeah, I don't mind if it fits the situation. It needs to be fun, right? Don't just do it to be a dick, because now we're just missing the fun bits. It's going to be part of the challenge. It's part of the puzzle.
I feel the same way about encumbrance, right?
Yeah.
Like, don't bother me with this shit 98% of the time. But when we do come into an encumbrance thing or a food situation or a sleep situation, then it's memorable. Now I'm interested, right?
Yeah.
But don't punish me for showing up today.
Exactly. We're all fucking tired. You're lucky I'm here. Why are you doing this to me? Dave, I should let you answer.
I mean, yeah, I guess. I mean, if it was part of the understanding that we're gonna go like traipsing through the jungles of Chult, yeah, let's incorporate it into this. That's kind of what that's for. If we're gonna go dungeon crawl mad mage, no, let's just get through it. Let's figure out what kind of game we want to play and play that one. Would I want to? Yes, not always. Right?
It also depends if I'm playing a beer and pretzels game where it's like our old Tuesday night group guys where we were the evil campaign, right?
Yeah.
Like that. I'm not tracking food and water for that game. We were there to just create anarchy at the table and have some laughs, right? But my Sunday game, I have tracked food and water. That is something that we have done there. So it depends on your table.
Yeah, that's right. It's party and player dynamic as well. That should be considered. What features do you think everyone needs to keep in mind when it comes to setting up a D&D campsite?
Okay, so I've got a weird sticking point with this, and it has everything to do with how light is played in D&D. When you have got a campsite, and because we do that, we travel for 8 hours and then we set up camp on the side of the road, we find a clearing, or we are just in the woods, and we here we go, here's the campsite. We have plopped a bunch of tree minis down, or I've drawn it on the dry erase, whatever. And then I'm like, where are your tents going? Where's the campfire? All this shit. But where's the light? Because the light will be blocked by the tents. If you are taking watch, are you climbing a tree? Are you sitting beside the campfire? Are you walking the perimeter in the darkness? What are you doing? Take watch. It means something, right? And most of the time, everyone sits beside the fire. And when they do that, the enemies can sneak up.
Yeah, light. That's right. That's something I didn't consider.
Yeah, I mean, when you're sitting around a fire as well, you're not really always paying attention to what's behind you. I mean, Adam, you and I were camping that one time. There was like wolves came up.
Jesus.
Right? Like they were not that far away. They just kind of snuck up. We saw them in the clearing. Our fire attracted them to us, right?
Yep.
Now it's no big deal. Moving on, but like it does bring things to you, and you got to be kind of extra aware of it. If you're going to use light, that you may have a higher chance of an encounter, right?
Dave, do you remember how fucking terrified Ed was of those wolves? This poor man looks like a punk, mohawk and everything. He had never been camping before in his life. We took him up into the middle of the mountains. It's not a campsite. It's just the middle of nowhere with me and Dave and Sean and this poor guy, Ed. And we're waiting for the people to show up. We see wolves. Ed is freaking out. He barely came prepared to last the weekend. And then Dave's like, hey, the other guy should have shown up by now. I'm going to go. And so Dave gets in his car to go out to the main road to go find this guy, which is like an hour away. And then Dave doesn't come back for the rest of the night.
Yeah, but he broke his timing belt and I had to drive like an hour to go pick him up, wait for a tow truck.
And so me,
like 4 hours. Yeah.
Me and Sean and Ed are sitting there, and there was like deer or something walking by. I think that's what the wolves were hunting. But like every time that we heard anything move out in the wilderness, Ed just went completely white and panicked. And Dave had brought guns and an axe and all of this stuff, but it was all in the car, and he drove away with it.
Yeah, I'm not leaving that with you.
Yeah, so we sat there.
You guys had nothing. You had no weapons.
Sharpened sticks and sticks on fire, and so every time that we'd hear something, I would get up to go investigate with a flashlight, and Ed would fucking panic, and it was so funny.
Poor guy, just throw Sean at him. That's what he's for.
Ed, you got to hold it in, man. All right, I understand, but come on, take a breath. Panic quietly. Okay.
All right.
That's it. Adam, I'm handing it over to you. I won't ruin the surprise. You tell us what we're in for.
Okay, so I sat down and I went through the entire list of spells that I thought, or I went through every spell that I could find in 5th edition, and I threw out a bunch of them, most of them actually. I ended up with a list of 22 spells that I thought would be useful for being out in the wilderness. When you are out there away from civilization, what are you going to want? I came up with 22 of them. I'm not going to get into the nitty gritties of them, but because we'll be here for another hour and a half. Right? That's a lot of spells to go through. So I'm going to hit them by the broad strokes. If you are one of these kind of players, I'm going to list the classes and subclasses that have access to these. I'll give you a brief description. If you are one of these classes, think about it. Think about maybe picking this up when you have a couple of spell slots extra, because this is really going to help you with your wilderness. DMs, though, this is where, and I want to point this out, give it to NPCs. These NPCs will then become so fucking important to the party. And that will keep the NPCs alive, and that will give you tension and drama as well. So here are the 22 things that came across my mind. Some of them are kind of shitty. Some of them are pretty good. So let me go through them. First of all, the ones based on movement. The first one was Find the Path, which is a 6th level spell for bards, clerics, druids, and divine soul sorcerers. Divine soul sorcerers, by the way, low-key great for traveling. I had no idea. It takes a minute to cast. You got to keep your concentration up, but it can last up to a day. And the idea here is that as long as you stay on the same plane of existence, you know the shortest and fastest route to your destination. All the navigation stuff you were talking about before, Terry, out the window, right? We don't have to worry about that anymore.
Yeah.
The next one is freedom of movement. This one is not quite as great because it only affects one creature, and essentially lets them ignore difficult terrain. This is a 4th level spell, so it's a steep cost for artificers, bards, clerics, druids, 3 different kinds of sorcerers, and the Oath of Glory paladin. But it only lasts an hour. An hour for one creature so that you can ignore difficult terrain doesn't seem like it's really worth it until we go back to the conversation about how do you get your mounts through those difficult terrain areas. Right? And suddenly your horse can scale that steep cliff, right? Then you have Pass Without Trace, which is a 2nd level druid, ranger, trickery cleric, Way of the Shadow Monk, and Earth Genasi spell that you can get. It requires concentration and it lasts an hour. And the interesting thing about it is it targets you and quote unquote your companions. There's no limit. If you're traveling with 500 people, it applies to all of them. It adds +10 to your stealth checks that use dexterity, and it makes it so that you can't be tracked except for magic. So if you're trying to march an army through the wilderness, if you, like in Macbeth, they're trying to come in through the woods, right? You only need one person that can cast this, and there's lots of people that get access to it. When it comes to resource management, the first one I looked at was Create Bonfire, and then I realized that it sucks because it only lasts for a minute. You don't actually, you create a bonfire, but it does cantrip level fire damage, and it's gone in 60 seconds or 10 rounds. The good news is it's a cantrip, so you can spam it if you want, but that's a lot of effort. The other good news, though, is that artificers, druids, sorcerers, warlocks, wizards, arcane and nature clerics, arcane tricksters, eldritch knights, and a bunch of playable races give you access to be able to grab this. So it is around a lot. I'm not sure it's worth using up one of your cantrip slots. Great for an NPC, I think. You guys feel free to chime in because I can just kind of ramble through these.
No, go ahead. I was just thinking of interesting uses for Create Bonfire, and I couldn't think of any.
Yeah, it seems like it doesn't burn long enough. At least give it an hour, you know?
Yeah.
It does nothing. It's not long enough to dry your clothes. That's not long enough to cook food. That's enough to send a signal. You know, when they're lighting the tokens on the top of the pyres on the top of the mountain, sending the signs all the way along the mountaintops. You gotta have a big sign. That's what this is for. But that's about it.
I'll tell you what I think the intention of this is it's the middle of the night, the fire's gone out, goblins are attacking, and we have 3 humans in the party. We need a light source. I'm going to light that goblin on fire, and for the next 10 rounds, we will have a light source in the middle of camp.
Yeah,
that's the fucking use of this. It is
flaming goblins.
That's right.
Yeah. So We also have Create Food and Water, which is a third level artificer, cleric, paladin, circle of land druids, but specifically the ones that focus on deserts, divine soul sorcerers, and genie warlocks. They all get this spell. It's instantaneous, and you can immediately create 45 pounds of food and 30 gallons of water, which is enough to feed 15 humanoids or 5 steeds for a day. And I would honestly do a trade-off, 3 humanoids equals 1 steed. That's how the math breaks down. The food goes bad in 24 hours, so you don't have to eat it all at once, but the water doesn't spoil. So this is really good. This is really useful, but it does cost a 3rd level spell slot. Also, there's Create or Destroy Water, which is, I'm only going to focus on the Create part of it. 1st level spell for clerics, druids, divine soul sorcerers, fathomless warlocks, and water genasi. And again, it's instantaneous, but you get 10 gallons of clean water in an open container or as rain. And upcasting gives an additional 10 gallons for every spell slot level. Terry, this is the one that I used to drown the shopkeep way back in my very first session.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Because our lungs an open container, and you shrugged and said, sure. And then he drowned in his own shop.
Brand new to DMing. Yeah.
The answer is always no.
I know that now.
If Adam asks you, does the spell work this way? You say no. There's also Purify Food and Drink. This is a 1st level spell for artificers, clerics, druids, paladins, divine soul sorcerers, again. And again, instantaneous, and all food within a 5-foot radius sphere is purified and no longer has any poisons or diseases. This can be useful. I'm not sure I'm ever going to take this spell unless I know I'm going somewhere full of poisons and diseases, right? So the big...
If you're taking this, you have to have the understanding that you're going to need this when you set out your session 0.
Yeah. Again, a survival horror game, yeah, this would be useful. If I'm doing gritty realism rules, poisons and stuff, yes, absolutely. But beer and pretzels, hack and slash night, probably not. The best one is Hero's Feast, but it costs a 6th level spell slot. It's only for clerics, druids, and divine soul sorcerers. It takes a full 10 minutes to cast, but it's instantaneous when it does, and it creates a feast. The feast takes 1 entire hour to eat, but up to 12 creatures can benefit. Doesn't matter if they're steeds or humanoids or whatever. 12 creatures. A fucking dragon counts as one. They are cured of all diseases and poisons. They gain 2d10 hit points, and they get the same number of temporary hit points. They are immune to poison and being frightened for 24 hours, and they also have an advantage on wisdom saves for those 24 hours. That's fucking huge. But again, 6th level spell slot.
Yeah, well, that's what you'd want of a 6th level spell. That is powerful, right?
You're going to see this when you're hitting your tier 3, your big epic campaigns, right? But that's really all that we have for resources. Do you guys have, was there one that stood out to you as the best for resources?
I mean, Hero's Feast.
Hero's Feast, yeah.
The higher level, the better it is, really. I mean, especially with resource, the more resource you get, right? So
yeah, that's right.
Plus the temporary hit points, like up to 20 temporary hit points, in addition to regaining hit points, cure disease, that can really change things. Yeah,
the other one that I really liked was Create Food and Water, because it's only 3rd level, but it gives you 45 pounds of food, 30 gallons of water, except it's a 3rd level spell slot. And man, that's where my Revivify, my Fireball, my Counterspell, that's where all that stuff is coming in clutch, right? So I'm going to need 4 or 5 3rd level spell slots before I think about this one. When it comes to the next one, it just stands on its own. There's nothing else that's quite like this, and it's Catnap. This is just good for most adventurers, but because we talked about rest, it's worth bringing up. Again, it's 3rd level, but I've seen Dan use this to great effect. It's for artificers, bards, sorcerers, wizards, arcane tricksters, and eldritch knights. It takes 1 action to cast. It lasts 10 minutes, but up to 3 willing creatures pass out and are unconscious immediately. But they wake up 10 minutes later with all of the benefits of a short rest. So this is beautiful for warlocks that regain spell slots on a short rest.
Right, yeah.
So if you are a support caster, an artificer, bard, some wizards and stuff, this is what you want. I'm probably not going to do it for an arcane trickster, eldritch knight. You have so few spell slots in the first place. I'm not taking this. Then I was looking at things that can be defenses when you've set up your campsite. Some of these are good, some of these not so great. The first one is Alarm. It's pretty straightforward. It's a 1st level ritual that can be cast by artificers, rangers, wizards, arcane tricksters, clockwork soul sorcerers, eldritch knights, Oath of Watchers Paladin. So like a lot of people, it takes 1 minute to cast. It lasts 8 hours, so it'll last your whole long rest. But you have to choose a 20-foot radius area or smaller, and that's big, 20-foot radius. And whenever a tiny or larger creature passes through the warded area, they set off a mental alarm in your mind or an audible alarm. If it's in your mind and you're within 1 mile, it will alert you and even wake you from sleep. If it's audible for everyone, then it can be heard within 60 feet for 10 seconds and should, in theory, wake people as well. So that's pretty good. It should cover most of a campsite. If you're camping in a cave or some sort of like against a cliff, this might be pretty good. The next one that I saw was Druid Grove. Druid Grove has so much to it, but let me give it to you really quickly. It's for literally only druids. It's right in the name. It takes 10 minutes to cast, but it lasts for 24 hours. And the idea here is that you're getting nature spirits to protect an area that is outdoors. It can be anywhere between a 30-foot cube to a 90-foot cube. Buildings and other like man-made structures or elf-made, whatever structures, are excluded from the affected area. But the idea here is that there's a bunch of stuff that happens. It fills with fog. There are grasping vines and stuff that come up, like the Entangle spell. There are a couple of, like you can get 4 trees in the area to uproot themselves from the ground, and they've got the same statistics as an awakened tree, and they are essentially guards. You can choose to add constant gust of wind in 2 different locations. There can be spike growth in 1 location or a wind wall in 2 locations. So you just protect the area that you guys are in for a 6th level druid spell. And druids are full casters, so I feel like some druids just might take that. You do get Glyph of Warding. This is a 3rd level spell for artificers, bards, clerics, wizards, arcane tricksters, divine soul sorcerers, and eldritch knights, but it only covers a 10-foot area, so unless you're covering a narrow entrance to a cave, it's not going to be very useful in the wilderness. It's better suited for dungeons and structures, but it essentially damages people that walk through it. Guardian of Faith is a 4th level spell for clerics, Oath of Devotion, or Crown Paladins, divine soul sorcerers, and celestial warlocks. And it is better than Glyph of Warding, but it still only covers a 30 by 30 foot area to be protected. So that might cover a very small campsite, but it costs a 4th level spell slot. It's also going to draw attention because it summons a large spectral guardian that hovers that protects the area. So stealth is not the name of the game for this one. There's the spell Forbiddance, which is a 6th level cleric spell. It's also available to divine soul sorcerers. This one takes 10 minutes to cast. It lasts for, interestingly enough, a day. Not 24 hours, but 1 day. It's weird that it said that way. But 10 minutes to cast, lasts a day. You get a 40,000 square foot area, which is 200 feet by 200 feet. And up to 30 feet above the ground. No one can plane shift in or teleport in. You can choose 1 or more kinds of creatures from celestials, elementals, fae, fiend, and undead. And when they enter or start their turn within the area, they take 5d10 radiant damage. Plus, you can put a password on it so allies of those types can come and go as they please. And if you cast it for 30 days on the same place, it becomes permanent until it's dispelled. So it's not going to keep people out, but it's going to seriously discourage them. There's Hallucinatory Terrain, which is a 4th level bard, druid, warlock, wizard spell that's also accessible for arcane tricksters, circle of land druids that are specifically focused on deserts, eldritch knights, and lunar sorcerers. It's a 150-foot cube of natural terrain that looks like other natural terrain, including natural barriers or impassable objects. So it's pretty big.
How you put a brick wall in front of things.
It's got to look like natural terrain, so you'd put
a rock wall. Sure.
A rock wall, yeah. The next one, which I don't think is very solid, is Magic Circle. This is going to be used for short rests. It's for 3rd level clerics, paladins, warlocks, and wizards, plus arcane clerics, arcane tricksters, divine soul sorcerers, eldritch knights, and interestingly, the Monster Slayer Ranger. This one lasts 1 minute. It lasts, you can cast it in 1 minute. It lasts an hour. It's got a 10-foot radius and 20-foot tall cylinder. You choose 1 or more kinds of creatures from the same list. Celestials, elementals, fae, fiends, and undead, and they cannot enter the area through regular means. If they teleport or plane shift in, they have to succeed on a charisma save. Also, they have disadvantage on attacks against creatures within. People inside can't be charmed, frightened, or possessed. So, good, but they can still get in if they are really determined to. So that brings me to my last category, which is all about the shelters that are available to you, the magical shelters. My favorite one that everyone seems to just fucking forget about is Rope Trick, because it sounds so boring based on the name. But this is a 2nd level spell so it's relatively cheap for artificers, wizards, arcane tricksters, eldritch knights, and gloomstalker rangers. It costs only 1 action, and it lasts for an entire hour. And I'm going to read this part directly. You touch a length of rope that is up to 60 feet long. One end of the rope then rises into the air until the whole rope hangs perpendicular to the ground. At the upper end of the rope, an invisible entrance opens to an extra-dimensional space that lasts until the spell ends. It holds 8 medium or smaller creatures. You can pull the rope into the space so that the rope disappears. No attacks or spells can cross the threshold, and everyone inside the space can see outside as if through a 3-foot by 5-foot window centered on the rope. When it ends, everything just falls out of the space. That's just a free short rest for a 2nd level spell. And there's very little kerfuckery that can happen with that. People love the next one, Liamon's Tiny Hut, but when you compare it to Rope Trick, it's kind of bullshit. Liamon's Tiny Hut is a 3rd level ritual that bards, wizards, arcane tricksters, eldritch knights, and twilight clerics can cast. It takes a full minute to cast and lasts 8 hours, as opposed to Rope Trick, which is an action of 1 hour. There's a 10-foot radius immobile dome that lasts the full 8 hours, but is dispelled if the person that casts it leaves it. You have to cast it over the people that you want inside of it, and anyone outside of it cannot enter it hard stop, even if they're part of your party. If they're just not near enough, they won't make it in. It fits 9 medium or smaller creatures, and you can't cast spells through it. It's warm and dry inside, and it can be dimly lit or dark inside. From the outside, it's an opaque dome that is one color that you choose, but everyone inside can see out of it. There are so many ways around this. There are entire Reddit threads dedicated to how to fuck over Liamon's Tiny Hut. It is a dome. Burrow up. It is a dome. Pile a bunch of debris on top of it and light the debris on fire.
Yeah, I had players try to hole up in it one time, so we just started stacking firewood, and they came out real quick, because of course they can see everything going on.
Yeah. Whereas Rope Trick, it only lasts for a short rest, not a long rest, but you can't fuck with Rope Trick. So the next one is Mordenkainen's Private Sanctum. It's a 4th level spell for artificers, wizards, arcane tricksters, and eldritch knights. Again, arcane tricksters and eldritch knights, they're half casters. They're not going to take this. It takes 10 minutes to cast. It lasts for 24 hours. You make a magical cube anywhere from 5 feet to 100 feet on each side. And you can choose the effects, any of them or all of them. Sound doesn't pass through the barrier. The barrier appears dark and foggy, obscuring vision, including dark vision. No divination sensors like Arcane Eye can enter or be conjured within the area. No one inside can be targeted by divination spells. Nothing can teleport in or out. Planar travel is blocked. I had trouble coming up with why you would fucking take this, and then I realized that night hags and incubi and succubi exist. That's kind of what this is for. Mordenkainen's Magnificent Mansion, which, Terry, you used way back in the day in our Cursed Strahd campaign.
Right, yeah,
was
I remember.
So cool, so much fun. It was a 7th level spell for bards, wizards, and arcana clerics, and it takes a minute to cast, lasts 24 hours, and essentially you create a comfortable, fully staffed mansion with multiple rooms. You choose who can enter it and who can open and close the 5-foot wide, 10-foot tall door if you're within 30 feet of the portal. When it's closed, it's invisible. No one can access it. And then we got 2 really weird ones that I think are really cool. Again, they're super high level, but check this out. Have you guys ever played with Mighty Fortress?
No, I've never played it. I've never heard of that spell, actually, but I can't recall.
It's an 8th level wizard spell. It's also available to Arcana clerics. Takes a minute to cast, lasts for 7 days. A stone fortress 120 feet by 120 feet erupts from a point you choose within 1 mile, and creatures in the area are gently pushed aside. The fortress has an outer wall, turrets at the corners, and a small 50-foot by 50-foot by 10-foot tall keep that exists inside of the walls. There are 100 unseen servants that are conjured within it, and if you cast it every 7 days on the same spot for a year, it makes it permanent. So you can just say, hey, we need a fortress to chill out for 7 days. But it is an 8th level spell slot.
I love that one.
That's really good.
Gritty realism, hey?
Sorry, Dave?
That'd be good for your gritty realism. We need 7 days to get a long rest. There you go.
I was also thinking this would be really good for your Curse of Strahd campaign. We need to protect Irina.
Yeah, it's fair. Yeah.
And the last one is very similar to it. It's called Temple of the Gods. This one's only a 7th level cleric spell. It's also available to divine soul sorcerers. It takes 1 hour to cast. It lasts for 24 hours, and you need a holy symbol to cast the spell, and the temple is dedicated to the entity or pantheon that the holy symbol belongs to. It's 120 feet on each side, but other than that, you choose its layout and decor. You can choose who can open or close the only door, but there are as many windows as you choose. You choose one or more kind of creatures from celestials, elementals, fae, fiends, and undead, and they have to make a charisma save to enter. And inside, for them, all d20 rolls essentially have the effects of Bane, where you subtract a d4 from the total. It also blocks divination magics, and you can add your wisdom modifier to any healing that takes place within the temple.
I like that one as well. Those last two are great.
So if you're going to end up going across the continent, you're just gonna fuck these roads, we're walking, right? We end up using, what was it, find the path at the very beginning. We go, the shortest way is that way, here we go. You have some options, but interestingly enough, there's not as many exploration, like wilderness travel spells that I would like. Goodberry is there. That's just like a random healing spell. Well, how do you guys feel about the level of magic for overland travel and cross-country travel in 5th edition?
I mean, I feel like there's enough there to get you what you need, right? They hit every major thing you might want, but they don't spend too much time on it, right?
Yeah, that's right. It's like you got the essentials there, but also it's tough. Like, how creative can you get with it? You know? Yeah.
Yeah, I bypassed some things like polymorph, which would give you everybody can fly, right? Or wish, which is just I wish I was in that city.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I feel like it doesn't count. Yeah.
But yeah, it just felt like there are so many freaking spells in D&D, and it just felt like 22 was not enough, you know?
Yeah, that's right. It is.
Yeah, but I mean, you look at the percentage of all the spells, how many of them are that? Like, that's probably in line with how many of them I use for combat, you know? Like, the majority of spells are combat-based because that's what I'm doing the majority of the time.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. And like, it's just interesting to me that when we come up with like role-playing spells, there's a lot of things that can charm, more than 22. Divination, there's more than 22 for being able to figure out plot points and look across the veil and see what's going on over here, or commune with nature or whatever, right? And then everything else seems to be create this object or this effect or blow something up or cause damage or kill or heal, or right? Like, it just felt like the exploration pillar was just kind of abandoned by the spell list in 5th edition, because a lot of these come from other books besides the player's handbook. So anyway, I thought that was interesting. I'm going to put the list of all of these spells in the show notes below, although I'll probably leave out the shitty ones like create bonfire, just in case anybody wants to take a look at that. I was surprised just how often I had to say the words Arcane Trickster, Eldritch Knight, and Divine Soul Sorcerer. Surprisingly useful for exploration. And clerics, too. Surprisingly useful. I didn't see that coming.
Okay, before we go any further, let's rest up and enjoy a refreshing info break.
If you've been inspired by the conversation in this episode, please feel free to reach out and share your creativity and ideas with us and the rest of the community. You can reach us on Facebook and Instagram, or on our subreddit, r/itsAmimic, where we keep a place for you to ask mailbag questions as well as our episode guide. Also, if you're feeling particularly generous, please follow and subscribe and leave us positive reviews, likes, and comments. Engagements like that help us pop up on search engines and keep this show running.
Any final thoughts about overland travel or wilderness travel or camping or anything else that you think people should think about?
I got lots of thoughts about camping, but
Dave's been thinking about camping all the way through this episode, I think.
It has been much longer than that.
In D&D, Dave. In D&D.
What? Oh, right. That's what we're doing right now. Yeah, look, I could go on and on and on about it forever, but I mean, that's not something I prefer my camping to be more in real life than in the game. It's not something I focus too much on.
Right. Yeah, I think, without getting bogged down on the travel too much, I think there's still opportunities for a little bit of more interesting exploration here. I think it was good what we uncovered. So yeah, the spells are lacking here. But I think what we talked about earlier certainly did give me some inspiration where I might try the gritty rest option. I might tie that in with some longer travel and see. There's inspiration there, because it's typically quite a dry part of the game unless you get creative with it.
Yeah, we've spoken for multiple episodes about environments and exploration and traps and hazards, and we did one on cover, and we've talked about light and surprise attacks and exhaustion and poison, and there's a lot to be added on to this. But it was interesting because we never really sat down and talked about gearing up a freaking horse, right? And going out into the wilderness and just kind of living and surviving. It's interesting how often hunting comes up at my table, and always has. And there's so little. It's a survival check, right? Like you can buy a net, but the nets are underwhelming in 5th edition. I mean, that kind of sucks. So I don't know, Dave, do you feel like, I guess that's my last question, do you feel like hunting is well represented in 5th ed?
Is well represented.
No, I really don't. Because you're right, it is just a survival check away, right?
Yeah. It's like navigating as well, Terry. You were talking about like the idea of constellations and the idea of how many fingers do you hold up to the horizon to see how many hours have passed, right? Or how much longer until sundown, right? And all this stuff. There are tricks and really interesting ways of going about interacting with the natural world on like a climate or weather or landscape scope, and it's a survival role.
Right. Oh, I know. One of my favorite things, I've said it before, just like being out in the woods and seeing nature wake up and like seeing the nuance and intricacies of what's going on and how that affects and what that might change and how this is going to react over here and blah blah blah. Again, no survival check.
Hey, you know what no Dungeons and Dragons parties ever encountered is morning dew.
Yeah.
Like I'm just throwing that out there. You wake up and half your shit's wet because it's February.
Yeah, we're crossing the river, jumping over the stones. Not morning dew. They're very slippery.
Yeah.
Disadvantage.
Yeah.
Oh God, there's going to be somebody flipping a table if you do that to them.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right. Okay. Okay, Dave. Get us out.
Anyways, that's all for this part of our discussion on wilderness travel in Dungeons and Dragons. Please take a second to engage with a like, follow, comment, and review to help push our engagement. And don't forget to subscribe to find future inspirations for your campaigns.
If you'd like to support us, we have a store with some merch and a donate button on our website, itsamimic.com, as well as a Patreon. This episode and others can also be found on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, and most other podcast apps. Thanks for listening to It's a Mimic, where you never know what you're going to get.
This has been an It's a Mimic production. Please check the show notes for this episode to see links, time codes, and credits. And don't forget to reach out and share your own inspirations.
Yay, we did it.
That was a surprisingly fun episode for me anyway.
Yeah, it was well and long too. Like I thought, like, oh, this is gonna be too bad. But,
right. Yeah. Well, we got to talking on this one. We actually got pretty engaged on it.
Yeah. Well, I was like, I normally just handwrite notes. So I only had like a page and a half. Like that's pretty light, but no.
Yeah.
I was telling Terry before you logged on, Dave, that I was excited to do this one with specifically you guys because, I mean, Dan camps. I can't tell you if any of the others do. I mean, Megan did scouts for years, but I don't think she's been out in the woods in the last decade.
She's over it.
Yeah, it's funny. I am very sure that Megan and I have camped together, but we just didn't know it. So with all the scout stuff.
Oh yeah, you guys would have gone to the same
events. Yeah.
You camped together, but Megan didn't know it.
Terry.
It was great. Well, I think Dave and I do a very different type of camping. Dave sleeps in a hammock with nothing over him. Sometimes I like to feel like I'm at home. I like to feel like I'm in Mordenkainen's mansion. That's where I like to feel when I'm camping.
Actually, Terry, we haven't been out in a little while. I've got a little camper trailer now that I've been renovating. I've got a little house on wheels that I take around with me now.
Perfect.
We all hit our mid-30s or older and decided to fuck this sleeping on the ground shit.
My friend gave me a free trailer, and I work in a home improvement store. It's easy, right?
Is it waterproof yet, Dave?
Yep.
Good.
Well, that's it. Fly, my little dragons. Have a fantastic day.